The recipes of the past are not fit for the future. We can't keep saying, we'll just have more of the same. I mean, I kind of think no wonder people are scared. The future is looking pretty grim if you're not a billionaire. People keep talking about we've just got to grow the cake or grow the pie.
Yeah.
But the oven is only so big.
Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it Mind Cake.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another slice of Mind Cake.
Mind Cake.
You got better than last week. The podcast where two wallopers wade through the weird and wonderful world of well-being, speaking to some fascinating folk and asking questions that don't always have straightforward answers. I am Lee Crompton.
And I am Paul Beeson. And Lee, before we get into this one, you've been trying to explain to me why the economy is a bit like a cake.
Yes.
Now, I've never known a cream puff to be subject to fiscal change and inflation, Lee.
Well, no, but, you know.
And it's not one of your better analogies, is it? You're
Well,
better than that.
You say that, but is a cream puff even a cake?
Yeah, of course, I think.
Well, maybe today's guest will explain it a bit better. She spent a career asking one question: why, in one of the wealthiest periods of human history, are so many people exhausted, anxious, and left behind?
And the answer isn't more cake.
No, the answer is definitely not more cake. It's about what kind of cake, who gets a slice, and whether the oven is even big enough.
Right. Well, I think I need to hear this.
You do, Paul. So let's check that oven
and grab ourselves another slice of Mind Cake.
Hello, Mind Cakers, and today we are honoured and privileged to be joined by Katherine Trebeck, who is a political economist, a writer, and advocate for economic system change. Welcome, Katherine.
Thank you, Lee. Awesome to be here.
I don't understand most of that intro myself. So what do you actually do?
I think a lot about how economic systems are affected by power and vice versa, because I don't think you can look at the economy without talking about power, and I don't think you can talk about politics without talking about the economy. And so I sort of play in the middle and think about, right, how are the way the economies we have structured, are they serving people and planet? And 9 times out of 10, if not more, the answer is no.
No. I mean, I'm going to go off piste. I have a tendency to go off at tangents, and I'm already gone off script with my questions that I've got to ask. Because we do, I mean, particularly at the moment, there seems to be a lot of decisions that are made to benefit. I saw people betting on the Iran. There seems to be a lot of betting on the Iran war, and people with insider knowledge and people at the top benefiting. In my brain, in my pea brain, with a planet with limited resources, surely you can't keep saying, well, we're going to grow GDP by 2%, 3%, and growth and growth and growth and growth and growth, because there's only a limited.
Yeah. I mean, your podcast called Mind Cake. So people keep talking about we've just got to grow the cake or grow the pie.
Yeah.
But the oven is only so big.
Yes.
And so we need different recipes to take care of people. So the idea is if you just grow the pie bigger, everyone's slice will get bigger. You don't need to talk about what size slices different people have, and maybe some people are getting half the bloody pie and only a few people, and then most of us are having to share the rest.
A few crumbs.
The challenge is, the crumb, literally the crumbs, crumbs from the big piece that people are hoarding up and hoarding away. And so if you take that science, and there's a lot of science around the limits of the planet in all sorts of dimensions. Climate change is the one probably people talk about a lot, but it's a lot more than that. Biodiversity loss, sort of, people probably see fewer bees in their backyards over different summers. That's just one example. And so if you take that seriously, you need to have a good hard look at how economic systems, policy choices, how we tax, what we spend money on, what sort of businesses make up the economy and who is winning and who is losing, production and consumption systems, all those sorts of questions come into play. And where I land is, well, the recipes of the past are not fit for the future. We can't keep saying, we'll just have more of the same, because those challenges are becoming more and more apparent. But the sort of solution that seems to be offered from a lot of people in government is just have more of the same, maybe faster, more of the same, quick, no holds barred, more of the same. But that's just patently not working. And so if you take it seriously, you need to have a very different conversation about different ways of doing things. The good news is that lots of people are exploring those different ways of doing things. They're rolling up their sleeves and experimenting. So it's not entirely a step into the unknown, but it's a massive shift. That's what our times require.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree, because you can't, like you say, you can't keep chasing with the limited resources that we have. You can't keep growing, because then eventually you get somebody who comes along and wants to sort of colonize Mars because we haven't got enough room and resources on this planet. I mean, he wants to live there.
It's insane, which is completely letting the economic system off the hook. And it's almost like we do not have the intelligence to imagine a different system here.
No.
We just can't, the implications, well, we can't go there. So we have to have the intelligence to imagine moving whole civilizations to Mars, which is insane. Surely we can have the intelligence to imagine something very different here that is much better aligned with what people on planet need. The other point around, growth, so often in policy circles, it's almost as if growth is a solution to everything. And yet growth, I find that a really profoundly unsophisticated conversation, because growth is a little bit like the word move. So Lee, for example, if I said, hey, Lee, move, you'd say to me, well, where? Out the door, or further in, or faster or slower, or up and down, or you'd ask me all sorts of questions. And in a way, I think we need those sort of questions around growth. What sort of growth do we need more? Where do we need to grow? What's the nature of that growth? In what direction? And so I talk about being very fussy about growth, rather than sort of unilaterally critical of it or unilaterally positive, as most sort of government discussions are. But we need to be fussy about it. What do we want more of in our economy? And what do we need to power down, if we're really honest about how harmful certain activities have been for people on planet? And there are examples of societies doing that. I mean, you're based in Scotland. Scotland was on the front foot with curbing tobacco use and banning tobacco in pubs. Those sorts of things, they're the sorts of decisions we need to be able to make across the board. What do we need more of? And what, if we're really honest, is not good for people on the planet? So maybe its time has run out.
I have often wondered, I read somewhere, if you ask people, do you want to live underground in Antarctica for the rest of your life, they go, well, no. But basically what they were saying was that how habitable that is in the harsh conditions is like 100 times or 1,000 times more habitable than Mars would ever be. So if you don't want to live underground in Antarctica, where actually you'd be pretty
and yet you think Mars would be a good idea.
I think Mars would be a good idea. So why don't we spend that money trying to fix the perfect planet that we've got, rather than build a phallic shaped rocket that's going to take a handful of billionaires to Mars. So I don't know where I was going with that.
They can go.
They can go.
They can go. We'll be fine.
That would probably be a good, not a bad move. But what I suppose what I'm saying is when it's such a big shift, and when you've got people who've got the money to maybe make change and are spending it in other areas, how do your job must be very, very difficult.
Well, to a degree, but in a way, I mean, people who are sort of seem to think business as usual is okay would say to me, oh, well, you're being unrealistic. But I think moving humanity to Mars is pretty damn unrealistic. And I think also kidding on that the current system is okay and is good enough and is actually the best we can do is also unrealistic. I mean, I'm here in Australia, we're one of the richest countries in the world, where we are already being battered by environmental breakdown. We had Black Summer a few years ago. Your listeners will probably remember, just before COVID hit. The whole almost southeast coast of Australia was on fire. There are huge parts of Australia that are now uninsurable because of the extent of huge floods. And all this evidence is saying these extreme weather events are becoming more and more frequent. They are the new normal. There are some scientists who are saying, right, that black summer fire of before COVID, that will be a normal summer in 10 years' time. And so the idea that we can avoid change, I think, is a stupid, deluded idea. I think that the question becomes, okay, what does good change look like? How do we take care of people throughout that change? Because humans quite naturally are fearful of change.
Yeah.
So how do we honor that and take that seriously and look after them and build pathways out of it and imagine something better? Because to me, imagining moving humanity to Earth is a much bigger lift than actually getting our heads around a different economic system, because there are already examples of it bubbling up everywhere. We see it in incredible enterprises like worker co-ops, for example, or in Scotland, they've just brought in the Community Wealth Building Act. That's about shifting the flows of money so it stays locally in community rather than being siphoned off to remote sort of faceless shareholders. There's great examples of businesses who are saying we're going to keep resources in production longer through what's called the circular economy. So you're no longer taking things out of the ground, using them for a little while, throwing them away, but you're actually designing for reuse, designing things to last longer. I mean, to me, that doesn't sound that crazy. That sounds just pretty sensible. So we need to roll out those sorts of examples and have more and more of them. And then they start to add up actually to a new normal. That's a much better way of doing things.
They start to become, like you say, the norm rather than
that's the hope.
the outlier.
Rather than the exception that's proving the rule. And at the moment, those examples, of which there is incredible examples, they are going against a lot of headwinds because a lot of the policy rules are not supportive of them, but also mindsets or around how people talk about the economy. If you turn on the radio and look and listen to the way politicians and media commentators and academics talk about the economy, it's also not really supportive of these sorts of conversations. And yet, despite all that, there are still these amazing examples out there. There's a whole lot of policy examples too of bits of legislation and regulation. And I've already mentioned the Community Wealth Building Act, but there's lots of governments who are using procurement to make activities more sustainable, or even I get really excited about things being banned. So just ban bad stuff. And so let me give you one example. In the state of South Australia here, they've said, right, banning single-use plastics, coffee cups, those little plastic bits you put on your loaves of bread. They're banning advertising outdoors for fast food. I mean, so that's also great. All those sorts of, so there are lots of examples. In the state of Oregon, the city of Portland has said, we don't want companies that are operating here to pay their CEOs huge amounts of money compared to what they pay their average worker. They don't have the powers at their level to sort of stop that. But what they've said is, okay, if you're operating in our town and that ratio is enormous, like 100 to 1, we will jack up your business rates, your local taxes. If it goes up to 250 to 1, they'll go up even more.
Right.
I mean, and I love that. They're just saying, okay, what are the levers we have, given the level of government we are? Let's utilize them. Sweden has said we want to encourage a more circular economy. What we'll do is reduce the VAT on repairing your things like your toasters or your jeans. So there's cool enterprises, there's cool policies out there, but actually they're not yet adding up to the change we need. They're still, as you said earlier, the exception that proves the rule.
I don't want to be cynical about this, but particularly in the UK, I'm going to use COVID as an example, and what I said earlier about people. I guess the problem that you've got is there are a lot of people high up in government and whatever it's in their interest not to have this stuff. I mean, I can't imagine Trump or Boris Johnson, for that matter, saying, when you think about all the PPE contracts that he sold,
contracts for mates and things.
That I think, this circular economy. So circular, just again in layman's terms, so circular economy is where it's more recycling and reuse. Is that?
Reuse particularly. So it's better not to buy something in the first place, of course.
Yes.
But then if you have to buy something, you get something that can be completely reused, unpacked. So I'll give you an example I find quite amazing. There's a bank in the Netherlands called Triodos Bank, they do all sorts of good stuff. They are actually really grappling with some of these issues. Their chief economist writes a lot about post-growth ideas. They channel credit into activities that we need more of in a well-being economy, which is sort of the phrase for this. When these things start to add up, we'll build towards an economy that serves well-being. So circular economy is, I think, a component part of that. But one cool thing about Triodos is their headquarters, their building in the Netherlands, is all held together by screws. So it can be entirely unpacked, dismantled, and every pane of glass and bit of wood and reused. I mean,
Wow.
it's
What's
just,
this? I'm
it's
going
great.
to look this up. What's it called?
Triodos. Yeah, Triodos Bank. It's my UK current account bank is with Triodos.
I think I might just change now, because
Good on you.
the Halifax are pretty hopeless. Let's bring it back to mental health. What changes do you think could be made to improve? Because I think we're in a system that's kind of bad for our mental health. So what could we improve? What could they do?
Yeah.
What would be the big headline things they could do to make a difference?
There's no flick of a light switch.
No.
But this is about things like, if you look at why are people distressed and anxious and depressed and alienated with their lives? It's a lot of the time, and I'm not going to be sweeping about it, but a lot of the time, it's because they recognize they're operating in a pretty inhumane system where they're treated like just-in-time inventory, like on demand at the click of an app, and then disposable when capitalism no longer needs them. So they're being treated like rubbish, and yet they're human beings with feelings and families and hopes and dreams. And so, I mean, I kind of think no wonder people are scared. The future is looking pretty grim if you're not a billionaire. I mean, even if you are a billionaire, you're going to be having to put up higher fences and more security around your system. But if you're looking at the future your kids are facing, libraries collapsing and schools crumbling literally, and extreme weather events getting more and more frequent, it's a pretty scary outlook on so many fronts. And so people feeling lack of control, lack of future. They're working longer hours to just keep their heads above water, so they're not able to hang out with their families or their communities and build those relationships that we know are so important to humans as social beings. They're often further from nature. We know how important it is for folks to get out into nature and sit under trees, and that's hard if you're working 3 jobs on the minimum wage just to put food on the table. So there's all sorts of dynamics that are driving societies apart and driving individuals away from what they need. And a lot of those dynamics have economic roots. They're things like the nature of the way business work, where they're often, for all sorts of reasons, incentivized to keep costs down, and labor is seen as a cost. So, shed workers where you can, you pay them as little as you can. You don't treat them as human beings. You just treat them as an input to production. There's the huge economic inequality that is driving societies apart, where people are quite literally living in different worlds and don't relate to each other. Plus, then those at the top have the ability to influence policy and apparently, democracy in inverted commas, whereas everyday people feel that democracy and government's not working for them. They feel those institutions are not on their side. And so addressing economic inequality, addressing the quality of jobs, addressing people feeling that they're not in control of their lives by maybe helping them be owners of their work, the firm that they work in, have more local jobs, improve the ability for people to influence decisions that matter through them through things like participatory budgeting, which Porto Alegre in Brazil or New York or France are quite famous for, citizens' assemblies, which have happened in places like Scotland. And yeah, they're not perfect, and we can have arguments about how much are they being used by government. But the idea is there that you bring people into government making and decision making a lot more than they currently are. So there's a whole wide range of different mechanisms, and I think about all those different shifts you need to build an economy that serves the well-being of people and planet, which is sort of the tagline for a well-being economy. So lots of different shifts, local right up to the supranational. And I think of it a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. All these little shifts, big shifts, are going to be necessary, but none of them are sufficient on their own. And so what most people do when they are grappling with a jigsaw puzzle of that size, of 1,000 pieces, they start with the corners. And so this is how I get my head around the sort of that multiplicity of changes that are needed, is the corners of this jigsaw puzzle. And they quite handily all start with P. So I think about purpose, prevention, predistribution, and people power. So purpose is around, well, okay, what is the economy for? Is it there just to sort of quarterly increases in growth? Or is it a mechanism that we take care of each other? And then how we judge the success of that economy is very, very different. Are we talking about the direction and composition of growth rather than just faster, faster, faster growth, and how we measure it, just how we think about the economy as a means rather than the ends in itself. Similar for the component parts of it. What's the purpose of business? Is it just to extract and siphon up finance and shove it up to shareholders, or is it to be part of a positive contribution? Lots of examples in each of these P's, but I'll rattle through the concepts. Next one around prevention. So much effort gets spent and a lot of money gets spent responding after damage has been done. So to keep on with that Australian bushfires example, you can imagine after those bushfires, all that money that was spent in rebuilding people's houses, bridges, overtime for emergency services, asthma treatment for kids who breathed in a lot of fume, mental health treatment for people whose houses were burnt down. Ecological economists call that defensive expenditure. But you can imagine it across the board. Once people start listening to government announcements through this frame, and we call it failure demand, these are basically costs that are avoidable. So increased spending on rent assistance because our housing market is dysfunctional and basically has become a vehicle for investors. Or increased spending on diabetes drugs because people are not able to access a healthy food, for example. GPs are writing more and more anti-anxiety prescriptions because people are not feeling in control of their lives, don't have a sense of purpose and dignity. And so prevention is around just asking, well, why are these challenges existing? And often say we need to channel our inner 3-year-old and ask why until you get upstream to the level of the economy and dare to take action there. So to go back to the example of the circular economy, the more our businesses are circular rather than linear with their use of materials, the less we'll be having to spend on beach cleanups and river cleanups, let alone pulling plastic out of the ocean. The more people pay enough to live on, the more jobs people are paid enough to live on, the less governments will be writing checks for benefits for in-work tax credits. So the next one, predistribution, and that's saying, of course, there's a job for government to redistribute through taxes and transfers to sort of reduce the gap between rich and poor. But that's a hell of a heavy lift for government. They don't do it very well. It's a subject to a lot of political machinations and challenges. And so wouldn't it be better if the way the markets were designed is that they generated a better balance of resources in the first place? So things like workers owning the businesses, the community wealth building agenda comes in here, that you keep the money circulating locally rather than having it go up. Even how we price goods and services. So you've got a microphone in front of you. I bet you when you paid for that, that didn't include the full environmental cost of digging the resources out of the ground, shipping it around the world, so the more our prices start to include the environmental cost, we won't be seeing things that are artificially cheap because we've basically put blinkers on to the environmental impact. And then the final piece of this jigsaw puzzle is people power. And that's just making sure that folks feel in control of the decisions that matter for them, which is important for its own sake and important for mental health, but also important tactically because we know that when folks feel done to, they resist change. They're scared of it if they feel it's not for them. And so also it's important to help people feel, let's walk on this road. This is a journey I want to be part of. So things like making the just transition real. And I've already mentioned things like participatory democracy, citizens' assembly, but workers on boards of companies, economic democracy, those sorts of things. So that's sort of like that's a picture of what a better economy could look like.
Wow.
They're the chunks, the quarters, maybe I should say.
The quarters.
But
the quarters.
The good news is that people working on all those different pieces, there's people who are diving into each of those challenges and coming up with ideas, coming up with examples, coming up with proof of concept that it's showing that it's not just desirable, but it's absolutely doable.
Hmm.
We just need to sort of get
and
that.
necessary.
Oh, indeed. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
don't think there's a more necessary conversation.
no, no, I would agree. And we
Mm.
spoke a little bit before we came on about universal income. And when you
Hmm.
talk about the divisions between rich and poor,
Hmm. Mm.
what I find interesting is you're living in an economy where footballers are paid millions of pounds to kick a ball,
Mm.
or
Pretty
lawyers.
well, most of them.
Oh yeah, pretty well. I mean, some of them
But yeah,
pretty badly, but I just mean in terms of yeah, in terms of
you don't go
worth.
for the right team then, Lee.
Well, evidently not. No.
But you're right. I mean, it's insane, isn't it? That's the astronomical salaries. Whereas you look at the talent of a nurse who is able to calm down a distressed patient, who is able to engage with their family, who is able to work with compassion to the fore, know what medicines are needed, know what treatment. I think that's an extraordinary skill. I think teachers
But
who
that's what I
work
mean.
with,
But
yeah, I
in
mean,
terms of
so
worth, in terms of worth,
yes.
whatever your ideal of footballers or
Mm,
teams or
mm,
whatever, you've got a number of people
yeah,
whose contribution to society as a whole
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is at one level, and then you've got a
yeah.
whole other set of people, like you
Mm,
mentioned, people in the care homes, people who empty the bins, people
yep,
who, work in hospitals,
yep.
teachers
I,
who,
I,
if they all walked out tomorrow, would
They'd
have
be
a
stuffed.
different effect than if
Hmm.
the footballers all went on strike.
Yeah,
But the
yes,
disparity between
yes, yeah,
how we value them
absolutely, absolutely. Can I add
is
another dimension to that?
yes,
Because it's not just earning where the huge inequalities come from, it's people's wealth. So if that footballer, they might be earning X billion or million a year, but it's then if they buy property with that, or they buy shares, or they, it's that wealth will then make them more money.
yeah,
So, this is what Thomas Piketty, the French economist, talked about, that your money will make more money for you than people like you or I, Lee, could make working at our
hmm
day job.
hmm
And it means you see things like property become out of reach for people. People on average incomes will not be able to afford a house. I mean, in parts of Australia at the moment. And so it's not just the earning, which is profoundly distorted, but it's even that added layer of
yeah,
people's stocks of money. It's just things are messed up, hey?
hmm hmm
Really messed up.
So what, on the
Um,
basis that governments are slow, clunky,
oh, and
into
dominated by vested interests.
and dominated by vested
You were
interests.
you were
Let's
talking
try and
about
stay
that
on the
earlier.
positives,
Yeah.
Catherine. Let's try
Mm.
and stay on the positives.
Oh, sorry.
What can you what can you or I do? What can I do other than change my bank?
Yeah, do that.
I'll do that this
Celebrate
afternoon.
celebrate the good stuff. I mean, and of which once you start looking, there is no shortage of it.
Okay.
So I bet you many of your listeners will have in their bathrooms a shampoo or shower gel from the Welsh company called Faith in Nature. I see it in most of my friends' houses when I come back to Scotland. They have done something really cool. They have appointed someone to their board to represent nature. So there's
Really?
someone sitting around the board table whose job it is to speak up for the interests of nature. If you've got a lot of Scottish listeners, they might go into a health food store or a little supermarket and see something by a company called Green City Whole Foods. You see their trucks across Glasgow and Edinburgh all the time. What I love about them is they're a worker-owned cooperative. They've been around since the 70s. So
Really?
they're doing something right. And they've got a mission to reduce their supply chain, act more sustainably, but take care of their workers rather than be in business to treat their workers like rubbish and take money elsewhere. There's a ton of incredible smaller initiatives in Scotland, or whether it's little repair cafes or Freedom Bakery. I hope that's still going, where it's sort of teaching folks who are in jails, to bake bread so they've got something to come out with. So it's using being
Okay.
commercially
Yeah.
viable as a mechanism, not the point of business. So that those sorts of choices everywhere that people can make, but also how you speak about things. So not just take as a given when next time you hear someone saying, well, yeah, of course, the reason that our country's in such strife is because of immigrants. I'll say, well, hang on a minute. Maybe we should look at how the economic system has been designed and how it's created huge inequalities. And to maybe you say, well, if you ever meet, a politician in the street or at a school fete, say, well, what are you doing to bring about a more humane sort of well-being economy? So there's lots of conversations that folks can have. And I really think conversations matter because while we've got all these cool examples, policies that we've talked about, enterprises, community initiatives, I think of them as a little bit like Legos scattered across a kid's floor, like Lego wins. We've got all these little examples, but they're not yet adding up to the change we need. They're vulnerable to being trodden on and kicked out of the way. And that, in my reading, is because the dominant economic discourse is still profoundly outdated and stuck in the 20th century with those old assumptions. We were talking about the need for new recipes. And so the more people talk about what is possible and what is necessary and make it a normal conversation, and you have politicians start to hear it from the surround sound of lots of people chatting about it, celebrating the cool businesses, showing that, if you meet your local MP, do you know what? I really love these sorts of businesses. What are you doing to help them? Those sorts of questions. That is what everyone can do.
Can I come up with another analogy?
Awesome.
We spoke earlier. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. Is that maybe what you actually need is lots more just individual pieces of Lego, so that they're scattered more. So that when the fat cats come along, because for anyone who's ever stepped on Lego,
it hurts.
Hurts. I think that's the way change is going to come, is by scattering more Lego.
Irritate the system.
That's
one piece of Lego at a time.
Anarchic, isn't it? No, not anarchic. What's the anarchistic? Is that a word? I don't even know.
Yeah.
But more Lego. That's what you need.
Yeah. And then it will start to become the new normal.
The norm.
Others will be inspired by it. Others will replicate it. Others will think, well, I'm not going out on such a limb. That's cool. And then banks will start to say, oh, yeah, okay, now I'm more familiar with worker cooperatives. I'll be more happy to help them with a bank account or credit if they need. Or business advisors and accountants will say, well, what do you mean this is a community-owned business? They'll understand it and say, yeah, of course, we can do that. Let me help you do your accounts. All those sorts of simple things you need to make, this good stuff become the normal stuff.
I know you're not going to get drawn into this, but I'm going to say anyway, should we therefore be avoiding, if possible, not banning, but avoiding, if possible, the likes of Amazon Prime and Temu?
Yeah. I'm happy to go there. Yeah, I think because what is the nature of this business? One, it's anti-union. It treats people literally like just-in-time inventory. It's a device that makes consumption easy and disposable, doesn't take into account the environmental impact of fast consumption, fast fashion. It helps people, if they're retail therapy, quite literally, if you're depressed, clicking and getting a new delivery became almost a sort of meme during COVID. So it's offering people these sort of false, pseudo satisfiers, as one of my favorite thinkers Manfred Max Neef would talk about, things that aren't really satisfying them. So absolutely, we should be moving away from those sorts of business models. The problem is they're massive. So hence we need to go into bat the small folks. Yeah, but you also get a dopamine hit by being at a sporting match and seeing your team win. You get a dopamine hit by, I don't sing, but I remember even when go to church and you'd hear this, you get the hairs on the back of your neck, or you go a park run, which lots of people do now. You get a dopamine hit from being together and doing stuff cooperatively, and people being kind to each other. You get a dopamine hit as well. So yeah, there's other ways of getting it than just
looking
through
at it through a different lens.
Lots of alternatives out there. Lots of alternatives.
If you haven't realised already, I know we are running out of time, but I am kind of renowned for my Jeremy Paxman hard-hitting questions.
Okay.
So I don't know whether you're okay with me ending up. I don't know why you're laughing.
Bring it on.
Whether we're okay. Whether you're okay.
Jeremy Paxman has more hair than you, though, Lee. So
everyone has more hair than me, Catherine, as Paul points out every week. What I was going to ask, my hard-hitting, finish up with some hard-hitting questions. It says on your website that you like cooking for friends.
Yes.
And I wondered, is that about finesse or is it about comfort food? And what is your go-to from a well-being
Awesome.
economy, from a mental
Yeah.
health? If you go, Lee, you're looking a bit sad today. I'm gonna cook you something to cheer you up. What would you serve me?
Oh, so I'd probably bring you a gift. I'm going through a phase of making my own dukkha or dukkha. I don't know if Scottish folks have this, but it's this sort of North African type combo of sesame seeds and crushed up pistachios
Okay.
and fennel seeds and salt and nigella seeds. And you can put it on anything. You can put it on your bread with oil, or you can put it on your avocado, or put it on your risotto or your salad. So I make that in jars. And partly
Okay.
because, my day, I'd be at the desk all day and I'd feel a little bit like I haven't really achieved much, just sort of pontificating about the economy. I do this. I think, hey, I've got these jars of dukkha I can give to friends. I also, on a similar vein, I love making chili sauce. I'm not very good with
Nice.
it. I haven't nailed the recipe yet. I haven't been consistent, but I love making chili sauce and
Mhm.
giving that out. And then I've got something I can, it's about having something tangible. But yeah,
Exactly,
I
and
just
something
love cooking.
wholesome that you've
Oh,
made yourself.
well, it's pretty oily. I
Pretty
don't know.
oily.
It
But
may not be
that's
and salty.
yeah, I think a good chili sauce would lift anybody's mood, I think.
Yeah, if they're in the right frame of mind,
Any
absolutely.
garlic in it?
Oh yes, shit,
Oh,
like you
good.
can never have too much garlic, hey?
No, you can never have too much garlic.
More garlic,
Unless
more oil, more
unless
chili.
you found out that my cousin Carrie, who I found out at the weekend, is allergic to garlic.
Oh, that's really sad.
It is very
That's really
sad.
sad.
It's very
That's
sad.
really sad.
And we went to a restaurant and we made sure that they didn't have, we double checked that there was no garlic. And it
God,
turned
that's
out there was
profoundly
garlic.
allergic.
And
Oosh.
yeah, she hasn't been very well. So
Oh, I'm
that we
sorry.
should we shouldn't end it there. That's not so sorry, Carrie. Catherine, thank you so much for giving up your time.
Such a pleasure. Great to
N
chat.
Not so much thanks for changing your seating position so I've got your lovely vista in the background of Australia. Yes, I will go out into nature, into
Good.
Scotland later, and I will change my bank account. And
Awesome.
thank you so much for giving up your time, and hopefully we can chat more in the future.
I look forward to that, Lee.
All right.
Take care. Enjoy
Okay, have a good
nature and
day.
get well soon, Carrie. Bye.
Right, right, bye. Right, we'll pick the baking soda out of that, Paul.
But the oven is only so big, Lee.
It really is. And I think what I keep coming back to is Catherine isn't doom and gloom about it. She's genuinely hopeful. There are people rolling up their sleeves. There are businesses doing things differently. Governments are, well, sometimes trying.
Very occasionally trying.
Now, I did economics as part of my degree.
Did you?
I
You
did.
got you got a qualification
I
in
did,
economics?
yeah. Well, I scraped a 2-1, yes.
Oh, fair play, mate.
Anyway, what I was going to say was I never really understood economics, but Catherine explains it in a way. What I really loved about Catherine was she explains it in a way that we can all understand.
Oh, totally. And she makes good food.
Trust you to focus on the food, Paul.
Yeah, for sure, obviously.
But yes, making dukkha. Have you ever had dukkha?
Never had dukkha.
Well, we should maybe get her to send. You know, we never set up that PO box, did we, for people to send us cake?
Yeah, you can post us some dukkha.
So post us some dukkha so we can actually try it. And she makes chili sauce. So that is what a political economist does in her spare time, which tells you everything I think you need to know about the person that Catherine is.
Oh, she's so very mind cake, isn't she?
She is. She is. Talking of cake,
Hmm.
just to pick up on something there from the intro, a cream puff isn't actually a cake. It's a French pastry. Cake fact.
Unlike cake, choux pastry contains no chemical agents like baking powder. Instead, it puffs up in the oven solely from the steam of its high moisture content.
Cake fact.
I knew you'd throw that back in my face one day.
I'd love to throw a cream puff in your face.
Well, I stand corrected. I'm embarrassed.
Well, you should be embarrassed, Paul. You should be embarrassed. Massive thanks to Katherine for her time and her patience with a bloke who doesn't understand economics.
You.
Yes, me. Don't rub it in. Now, you know we love a good coincidence on this podcast.
There is no such thing.
Well, that's still open to debate, but I found out at the weekend that Katherine used to work with a previous guest.
What? No way.
Yes way. She shared a pod at Oxfam for a decade with Sarah from The Nest.
What?
Don't overthink it, Paul. It is just a coincidence.
Well, I'll tell you what, Swales from the Bell Witch podcast would tell you differently, wouldn't she?
She probably would. Hello, Swales. She'll be listening.
Hello, Swales. Yeah.
Now, we've had a lot of comments in from people who listened to the last episode with Tom about foraging.
Have we indeed?
We've actually had messages from people. Particularly the bit about people freaking out about the potential for dog wee on blackberries.
Oh, foraged ones.
Yes, foraged ones.
Yeah.
I should point out foraged ones, not ones that you buy from Lidl.
No.
So, Jay Cook says, when we were kids, we ate all sorts in the wild.
Yeah.
Make it sound like Texas or something. We knew the difference between cow parsley and hemlock. I don't know whether that's what Jay sounds, but anyway.
No,
we
not Texan.
We knew what deadly nightshade looked like, and we certainly knew to keep away from giant hogweed.
Ooh.
Today's kids are clueless, and so are their parents.
Well, we're both parents.
We are both parents, and so ruddy bloody clueless.
Yeah, true that.
So I think Jay's got a point. Sandy Blake says, I used to take my boys out when they were young to do blackberry picking. Great big luscious blackberries with the kids. Loved them, plus enough to make a tasty crumble. Now I'm going to go out on a limb here. Not necessarily blackberries, but I don't think you can beat a nice crumble.
I do like a nice crumble. Got to have custard with it though, right?
Custard.
Ooh.
Apple would be my go-to.
See, I think I'd be more of a berry crumble over apple. Yeah. Love my berries.
Good. Talking, he loves his berries.
I do.
And Michael Dodson comes in with a top tip.
Ooh.
He says, pick berries and put in fridge. All the bugs go to the lid. Is that true?
All bugs go to the lid. I'm assuming you pick the berries, put them in a container, and all the bugs go to the top of the lid?
That's what he appears to be saying, yes.
Huh. Well, do you know, I've never picked berries and put them in the fridge, so I can neither confirm nor deny that.
You just eat them straight from the bush, don't you, Paul?
I do, twigs and everything.
He likes a good forage in the bush, don't you?
I love going headfirst into a bush.
You do. Thanks to everyone who interacts with us.
Yeah,
that's 3 people. That's more than normal.
3 for 3.
What I was going to say was, on the back of that episode as well, as I'm now down in Dorset, I introduced my mum to some local Dorset honey that I found when I was out and about, and it's delicious. So I'm still on my mission to buy local honey.
Nice. I mean, you say you found it, you bought it from a local proprietor,
as opposed to nicked it from a hive or just found it lying in a hedgerow.
Yeah, like diving headfirst into some honeycomb.
No, it was just in a shop, Paul.
That would be good. That's fine.
Right.
I just want clarification.
Okay. Thanks. So, if this episode got you thinking, share it with someone who needs to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do your housekeeping. We're at sliceofmindcake@gmail.com. How'd you like them apples if you want to get in touch?
Well, I'll tell you what, Lee, you're better at the housekeeping than me. Maybe you should do it from now on.
I think I should. I'm just going to give out the email address because it's basically pointless trying to tease people with other ways to get in contact because they never do. Other than, again, thank you, Michael and Jay. And whoever the other person was. What was it?
Sandy. And coming up next on Mind Cake, we have...
Michael Redmond.
The actual Michael Redmond.
The actual Michael Redmond, comedian, Father Stone from Father Ted, famous actor.
Yeah, oh, like me.
Wait, he'd never heard of you.
Shut up. Right. Look, there's plenty of other podcasts I could go on, you know.
There are. Talking of which, I've actually been on another podcast in America.
Excuse me. I'm the one who goes on other podcasts in this podcast.
Well, I thought I'd take a leaf out of your book, and I was invited to go on Rock Bottom with Ryan.
Ooh.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Well, it's about people who've hit rock bottom,
Oh, that
and
makes
and the
sense.
host is called Ryan. You never know; he might have more than 2 listeners.
Well, maybe we should use this as an opportunity to thank our 2 listeners for tuning in.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you.
Yes.
Thanks, Mum.
So subscribe now so you don't miss our next wonderful episode with Michael Redmond. And until next time, in the words of Dr. Jan,
Don't be a dick.
see you later.